So Tom, how are you finding when customers look at the full stack observability, who becomes the owners of that, from a commercial budget, and then owning the end-to-end, because it's bringing lots of silos to one?
You've really hit the nail on the head with that. We operate in silos. Softcat even operates in silos to a certain degree, right? We've got different teams within IT responsible for what I'd call their island of technology. Historically as well, they've built monitoring tools just to look after their island. And again, it's that shift, I think, from monitoring to observability. Now, who owns it? It's a really good question. If you find an SRE team, typically they will be the center pin of observability in an organization. They will have responsibility to go and speak to networks teams, security teams, data platforms teams, to try and understand what it is that they're trying to observe, why they're trying to observe it, make sure they've got the appropriate tooling, but also collide all of that data and the output from that monitoring and observability together into a presentation layer so everyone's working with a similar source of truth. In terms of where that conversation starts about observability, it's really varied, if I'm honest with you. I'll go in and talk to some network teams and they'll really want to focus on network observability. But also then it's about painting that picture about, well, if we do network observability in the right way, that can improve what our data platforms team are able to do and how they're able to execute and share data with the security team to give them better context when they're investigating incidents and trying to remediate them. It can also come from an application team looking to improve application performance monitoring. What I find is there isn't a clear answer, but what it is about is understanding that no matter where it does enter that conversation, that there's value that can be derived from that across the entire IT team and not just in one of those silos. You can apply observability to a silo, but the biggest value and return on investment we see is when everyone adopts it and sees what the value is for their island.
So, Adam, we'll wrap it up with multinational. We're seeing a lot of customers move out into other markets, trying to expand their ground. What have you seen in the US market this year? Because particularly Softcat has seen a big expansion into the US.
Multinational has been quite interesting. I kind of walked into exploring this with some preconceptions that were probably a little bit off. The reality is that the challenges that US organizations, customers, patients, students have are the same as ours. They really are. And in certain areas, if you think of the 5 technology disciplines that Softcat are world class at, so cybersecurity, workspace, hybrid platforms, networking and connectivity, and data, AI and automation, I feel like 3 of those the UK are broadly on par with. The other 2, namely cyber and data automation and AI, there starts to be a decent amount of separation there. And I was talking to Microsoft about this just a few weeks ago, actually, and I was questioning them on, if we're looking to help our US customers even more than we are today, what are the new areas we should really be focusing on? I said, the UK's already there. Take what you have experienced in the UK, take the technology answers you found in the UK, take the customer challenges you found in the UK, and apply them. That's not the same when it comes to cyber and data automation and AI. Where it starts to differ is the US, there's definitely a stronger appetite to take a bit of a swing, to take a little bit of a risk, and to try new vendors. The US market is very focused on supporting homegrown talent, and there's a lot of homegrown American vendors. We all use them. We don't in the UK. We don't have the same choice. It's not like there are world-class vendors in each of our different disciplines that we could solely use their solutions. So I feel that there's a strong appetite for innovation in the US. They will adopt technologies more quickly than the UK and Europeans will. So it's slightly more exciting from a technologist point of view. I think it's great. I think we over here can learn a lot from our US counterparts. However, I have seen the other side of that coin is in the US, the almost rush to adopt something new means that when the Europeans adopt things, we tend to have the benefit of hindsight. So we can adopt things and follow best practice. So that might not just be in technology, it might also be in the way we structure our IT teams around the use of platforms, for instance. I suspect that the Europeans will be a better adoptee of platform technology from cybersecurity and everywhere else than the US, because they're in such a rush to take advantage of that thing that might give them an edge. They're adopting best of breed components all the time.
And you mentioned there that you see something slightly different in cybersecurity, data automation and AI. Is that just because of the speed and the pace of change of some of these markets, things like breaches, things like new technologies coming out, that keenness to adopt something new and best of breed and American made? We see that shift?
Some of those other areas have the Goliaths roaming around in them. So people like Microsoft, people like Cisco, whereby we all have access to. These are sweeping statements. Nothing's absolute, but broadly speaking, we have all got access to their latest, greatest innovation at the same time. And these are big companies with big local teams. There's a UK team for Microsoft that are trying to help us understand it, educate customers, adopt it. Where you've got some of the more breakout vendors, well, they might literally only exist in California. So it's very difficult for them to influence, customers in London or wherever else you might be. So I think there's a bit of that in it. Also, it's not just, maybe I slightly oversold the appetite for risk. I think there's an appetite to win in America. And that's why they're willing to take that, the competitive spirit of it, they're willing to take that risk on something that's not quite as proven. I find, I don't know about the other people in the room, when we're responding to tenders or customer requests, there's usually a question around, okay, where have you seen this done before? It's quite rare. There will be exceptions. We've got customers in the UK and Ireland that are, slightly close to that bleeding and learning edge. But on the whole, it doesn't really. It's an interesting conversation in the UK but doesn't pass go until you can prove it's been done before.
Do you think there's an element of that which is due to just how big the USA is compared to the UK, that we see there's more people who are up for adopting newer technologies quicker? Is it just a size comparison?
Possibly. You can fit almost every European country into America. Mm-hmm. I seem to remember it's like Luxembourg's the one left over. We run out of landmass. It's pretty close. I don't know. I don't know that scale. I think attitude is probably more of a thing. Because, Europeans, we broadly have the same scale. Mm-hmm. We don't have the same attitude.
My experiences with that is more to do with vendor resources as well. In the US, the vendors seem to have more resources for deployment and more use cases as well. And in the UK, and especially in my area, that's where we're kind of falling behind, is the vendors don't have that customer that can really show what the solution is capable of. And they kind of need to build that in, let's say, the UK to be able to show to UK customers. And they just don't have that yet for some of mine.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think those early adopter showcases are naturally born in America. Yeah. So yeah, like I say, it's not across the whole sweep of things where the US is ahead of us, of the Europeans. Generally speaking, I think they're slightly ahead. The Nordics then and the UK then follow. The Nordics and the UK tend to be the most advanced, and then it's kind of the rest of the world. But I certainly think the early adopters lead to early showcases, which leads to kind of the magpie thing where people want to get involved. But yeah, the resources are born there as well. Like I said, we all know a lot of these organisations are born in California. So are their engineering teams. So are their customer success teams. I don't know what you guys think about. Do US case studies are they enough to convince UK customers?
There's more people buying more stuff. So if you look at our security vendors and the ones that we kind of know and love, the big ones, like barring two, all of their largest market is North America. I think that obviously takes a lot of their focus. So to Kai's point, they'll get a lot of resource in terms of engineering, improve their worth. They'll get a lot of case studies because they've got more customers buying more stuff. And in the US, we tend to find in security, because the regulatory landscape's different, they're not actually doing different things. They're doing the same things in different ways, which will then mean there's more localization, regionalization. So within a vertical, and you'll get this a lot in the public sector in the UK, right? So the National Health Service is a really good example of use cases helps other trusts adopt similar technologies, whereas it's more broadly applicable in the US, we've seen, in terms of oil and gas will more broadly adopt similar technologies because they speak more, because their communities are bigger and more involved with each other.
The vertical bit's a massive part, I think, of the value in the case study piece.
Agree.
I also think sometimes the parts that a case study can sometimes lack for organizations exploring new technologies. Case studies are great at talking about what did we do? Why did we do it? What was the outcome we got of doing that?
I mentioned the EU AI Act earlier in part one. In the US, they have the Biden-Harris administrative order for artificial intelligence. And then we had, in part of the conformity assessment, a standard. So ISO IEC 42001. They have the NIST AI risk management framework, V1. They're very similar when you look at them. High trust for financial institutions, again, similar. You've got FedRAMP, similar to a lot of our local gov and our central gov staff. Like they're all very similar in what they're trying to achieve, if not the same. They're just achieved in different ways with different interpretations. They do obviously have, when we're talking about regs and legs and directives and compliance, they have a different legal system. They don't have the same pillars of law and legislator as we do. So obviously things are enacted and passed quite differently. And there's a lot of state dependency laws. So, for example, there are 17 individual states with their own individual privacy law. For example, we don't have that in the UK.
I mean, nuance might be underselling it a little bit. But that's why we're spending so much focus and attention on the US, is because the nuance is important. Ultimately, if you looked at a spreadsheet or presentation or whatever, the big problems they're trying to solve are the same. They have regulations that give them limitations as to how they can approach that and give them. The answers are broadly the same technology answers we all have access to. There's a slightly longer list because there's the new stuff that's in serious funding and hasn't, crossed the ocean yet. But those nuances specifically around the regulation is something that, if we want to help customers out in the US even more than we are at the moment, and we're doing a great job, but we want to do an even better job, we need to get completely locked in with that stuff.
Yeah, it affects Softcat. From UK going to US, for sure. Yeah, we need to understand the context of those.
It's the full globalization, isn't it, of technology is what you're looking at.
I think the main differentiator to what you're talking about is they've got Silicon Valley. Most of the Series A and seed funded startups in security come out of Silicon Valley, and if they don't, they come out of Tel Aviv. They do adopt technology earlier in the US because of that reason, and others. But it's not always the case of, the UK or EMEA is 2, 3, 4 years behind. It's actually normally about a year, 18 months for security.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes that's to do with actually vendors and technology providers moving into those other markets. People start there, they have to then have a whole strategy about how they take that across Europe, the UK, Asia.
Exactly right, yeah.
Yeah, the moving of markets is definitely something we get involved in quite a lot. So those new vendors you spoke about that are springing up over in Silicon Valley understand the States, don't necessarily understand Europe, UK. So they're coming to us and saying, well, we've got a great play here, help us translate that. And then we get to learn from bi-directionally there. It's a really useful setup.
Yeah.
It's a great learning experience.
Yeah.
Both ways. In the US, the actual physical vendor relationship with the customers is slightly different. Yeah. We come from a place where organizations like us have to be the face of many of the vendors, because there aren't, vendors don't have hundreds of people to go and help thousands of customers. in the UK. In the US, it's slightly different, the way the relationship works. But I think we can do a great job out there of making sure that our customers understand that we see them, we get it, we understand how to help them ask themselves the right questions, how to help them plan for their future, how to help them modernize, how to help them optimize. And because actually here in the UK, we maybe have been out here on our own a little bit, we're better at that stuff. We've got a huge amount of experience and maturity. So I think the US market will benefit from people with our attitude and our ability and our expertise. And for everybody else in this room, it will give us having a more localized presence in the US is going to give us a hotline to some of the stuff that we'll just see what's maybe 18 months ahead in cybersecurity.
So let's move into our New Year's resolutions. So we're going to ask you to predict your tech for 2025. What do you think you're going to see in the market in 2025? So we'll do 30 seconds each, and we'll follow the same order as the questions we just went round to look back at 2024. So we're going to start with you, Andy, and then we'll jump around the rest. So 30 seconds. What's your prediction for tech in 2025?
Okay, so we are going to see a really big push and delivery on data literacy and education. That is absolutely essential for achieving any of the things we've spoken about over the last couple of hours. It's not something that people can ignore. It's something they're going to have to deliver on, from the end user that's running a reception desk in their organization, that front of house piece, through to the C-suite. AI regulation is going to get teeth, and if we don't want to get bitten, we need to do something about it. We need to have thought in a more mature way about how we put those meta prompts into our systems. Do we put version control around them, for example? How do we do this in a grown-up and strategic and scalable way so that when we get asked about why something made a decision in a certain way or why we did something in a certain way, we can prove that we have an answer and a lineage for that. And I think lastly, there's going to be an increase in our adoption of personal agents. So back to that agentic AI piece. Moving on from that sort of traditional Google search into an AI-enabled search, maybe even AI-enabled shopping. And those agents that we start to lean into and understand and be more comfortable with are going to interact not only with data stores on websites, but other agents too. So it's something new for us to get our heads around.
Love it, thank you. So, Chiron, New Year's resolutions, go.
So in my space, I think we're going to start seeing the integration of customer experience, employee experience, user experience, and multi-experience all in one platform. So apps are going to be held in a space where it can essentially be on the same data repository, all connected, all relational. We're going to start seeing some AI-driven personalization, so actually using AI to design customer journeys based off the data that it has. So works really well with having that complete customer view as well. And then AI-driven process automation, that is going to be new for ERP. There is a little bit in there now, but over the next year, the vendors are really investing in driving AI into ERP.
Amazing. So we definitely needed that swear jar for AI. We're seeing a lot of that in the other industries, but really some big consolidation there with singular platforms taking all the different pieces. Thank you. So Kieran, predict your tech for 2025.
So I think we'll see more alignment within industry. So more executives, managers, and security leaders sharing insights, establishing communities, and sharing services in certain sectors and intelligence. A lot of this brought on by regulatory and the fact that we're trying to mature our security programs. I think we'll strive for more efficiencies in terms of how we use technology in security. So we're going to bring more integrations for more tooling. We're going to centralize our data, which is going to allow us to make decisions more effectively, more efficiently. So we're driving efficiencies by consolidating security capabilities, not just technology. And I think there's going to be an uplift in terms of AI-specific technology. So not things that are brought on by AI, like an increase in data security, but things like proxying for shadow AI for local language models and deepfake detection. Done.
Definitely hitting the AI buzzwords there. That was great. Thank you. Gary, predictions for 2025.
So how are we going to help customers succeed in AI-driven future businesses and making it successful for them? It comes down to the Groundhog Day. It's 4 key things: how they invest, how they prepare, how they enhance, and how they integrate. So how they're going to invest in modernized infrastructure with GPUs, different from legacy, but it's still got to play. And I think that's going to come to the fore when it comes to private cloud with AI. Second thing is how they're going to prepare for that exponential growth of data. That takes a real big thought process of cost, methodology, resources, stakeholder management, because that's so well tied to how they enhance their business continuity, disaster recovery plans. Most companies haven't even tested them. They just have a document. And so that enhancement then leads to the integration. And the new one for 2025 has got to be cyber resilience. They have to learn how to integrate cyber resilience with business continuity. If they can do all of that, and those trends as I see them coming out, that will make them succeed in not only their commercial and business, but also their technical alliance as well.
Amazing. Thank you, Gary. Big collaboration across the propositions there. So, Tom, New Year's resolutions 2025. Let's go.
Yeah, sure. So I think we're going to continue to get tired of hearing the word AI. That's no different in the world of networks. I think we're going to continue to see networking for AI start to really come to market, but also AI-driven networking come to market. Observability will be part of that, and how that really enriches the capabilities of network operations teams. I think starting to move from that observability world into automation and orchestration of what we can actually observe and how we can take an action out the back of it. The second thing that I'm going to focus on is sustainability. This is something that's starting to really creep up agendas now. Networking is one of those areas where we are hardware. A large part of what we do is hardware based. That won't be changing necessarily too quickly in the future. And the amount of energy that hardware uses is really starting to get scrutinized now. We're even starting to see that in other areas, talking about things like micro-nuclear reactors going into data centers now. Microsoft sinking, I think it was 15 billion into 3 Mile Island. They're reactivating an old nuclear power station just so that they can get the energy for 30 years. Energy is going to start to become a real talking point. And I think networking is going to be one of the starting points for that.
Big news. Thank you. Adam, last but certainly not least.
I reckon this year will be all about the integration at the intersection. So the world is broadly split out into workspace and hybrid platforms that is then protected by security, connected by networking and connectivity, and then enhanced by data, automation, and AI. And there's very few vendors with products that don't believe they also add a security spin or an AI spin. So I think at those intersections where you've got maybe a backups vendor that can now help you with your cybersecurity strategy and maybe use some AI to interrogate the data they have availability to. It'll be a year of all the vendors, and there'll be thousands of them, of course, looking at where they fit across that map, how they integrate at those intersections.
Amazing. Thank you so much. So thank you for listening today to some of those fantastic subjects of us looking over what we've seen in 2024, some big changes, actually a lot of maturity, a lot of integration, a lot of consolidation, so really seeing the markets evolve. And I'm super excited to see what we see in 2025 and hope your predictions come true.